Have you ever stopped to think about what your relationships are really saying about you? No, it's not about what you say or do, but about what your mind is silently speaking. Those patterns that repeat themselves, those relationships that always seem to fall into the same mistakes, the choices you make. All of this is a direct reflection of your subconscious. Maybe you've never stopped to realize it, but everything you attract, at some level, is related to beliefs and emotional wounds we've carried since childhood. Now, imagine if you could understand these patterns and use them to your advantage. What if, instead of feeling lost in cycles of relationships that don't make sense, you could transform this into a powerful tool for self-knowledge and change? What you can learn about yourself from the dynamics you create could be the key to unlocking a new way of relating, healthier and more aligned with what you really want. In this text, we will explore how your relationships are a reflection of your subconscious and how you can use self-knowledge to reprogram your mind, break negative cycles, and transform your connections. Get ready to discover how transformation begins within you and how you can create a new reality in your relationships without even realizing it. Sometimes it feels like the same relationship dynamics repeat themselves over and over in our lives. It could be that attraction to emotionally unavailable partners, or always finding yourself in relationships where we give a lot and receive little. These patterns are reflections of what is stored in the subconscious and, without realizing it, we attract what else we have inside. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? What many don't realize is that relationships reflect unhealed emotional wounds and limiting beliefs we've carried since childhood. If, for example, we grew up in an environment where love was linked to pain or control, it is possible that, in adult life, we attract relationships that reinforce these dynamics. The subconscious cannot distinguish what is good or bad, it just repeats what it already knows. If you find yourself stuck in these patterns, the first step is to take self-responsibility. This means recognizing that change depends on you and not on others. Start reflecting on the repetitive patterns in your life and notice the emotional energies that these relationships awaken in you. By doing this, you begin to make room for personal transformation, which comes with mental reprogramming and setting healthy boundaries. Our subconscious has immense power in the way we relate to the world, and relationships are no exception. Often, the beliefs and emotional wounds stored in the unconscious mind are projected onto our partners, friends, and even family members. When we are not aware of these beliefs, they determine how we react, what we attract, and how we position ourselves in relationships. Without realizing it, we end up creating scenarios that reinforce our own insecurities and limitations. These projections can be especially powerful when it comes to romantic relationships. For example, if you carry a subconscious belief that you don't deserve to be loved unconditionally, you may find yourself repeatedly attracting partners who are unable to offer this. This pattern is a reflection of an emotional wound from childhood, where love was conditioned to something more negative or distorted. Recognizing these dynamics is the first step towards deconstructing them. However, the big challenge is to understand these projections and understand that you are solely responsible for the transformation. To achieve this, it is essential to cultivate self-knowledge. Observing your own behaviors, emotions, and reactions in relationships can be a great start. By identifying these reflexes, you open the door to mental reprogramming that can bring new ways of connecting and establishing healthier relationships. Often, even if patterns in our relationships are clearly harmful, we continue to repeat them. This happens because the human mind, despite seeking happiness, has a tendency to seek predictability. Troubled relationships, such as those with controlling or emotionally unavailable partners, offer a type of safety because the mind already knows what to expect. It seems paradoxical, but this familiarity, even if uncomfortable, generates a feeling of control. This search for predictability has deep roots in the emotional need to feel safe. The subconscious mind, no matter how much it denies it, prefers the known to the uncertain. And often, we prefer to face the known pain rather than risk the pain of the new. This is a cycle that remains alive because, deep down, it fulfills some unresolved emotional needs, related, for example, to our childhood or past experiences. The key to breaking this cycle is to open yourself to the unknown, which requires self-validation work. When you start to believe in yourself and understand that you deserve more, the need to seek security in relationships begins to diminish. Establishing healthy boundaries and allowing yourself to explore new dynamics can, little by little, reprogram your mind to create new types of emotional connections. Healthier, more balanced and based on mutual respect. The experiences we experience in childhood have a profound impact on how we relate to each other in adulthood. If we grew up in an environment where love was associated with pain, control, or insecurity, we are likely to carry these beliefs and behaviors into our relationships. For example, someone who grew up with controlling figures may unconsciously attract partners who also exhibit dominant behaviors. The emotional pattern that was learned in childhood ends up being repeated in adult relationships, without the person realizing it. This type of pattern can be a real emotional prison. When we are still children, our brains are forming beliefs about the world and the people around us. These beliefs become the basis for the choices we make throughout life. If, for example, we learn that, to be loved, I need to be perfect, or I can't trust people, these limiting beliefs will be reflected in the relationships we attract. And the worst thing is that, often, these patterns become so ingrained in the subconscious that we are unable to perceive their consequences. The good news is that, by becoming aware of this influence, it is possible to reprogram our mind. The first step is to understand that you don't need to be a prisoner of your past experiences. With self-knowledge, we can release stored emotional energies and rewrite our history. Identifying these limiting beliefs and working to replace them with healthier beliefs is a powerful way to transform relationships and create new possibilities for connection. When we talk about changing our relational patterns, the first thing we need to understand is that true transformation begins within us. Self-responsibility is the key to breaking repetitive cycles of behavior. We often put ourselves in the position of victims in our relationships, but deep down, we are responsible for the dynamics we create. This does not mean guilt, but rather recognizing that we have the power to change and make choices that are more aligned with our well-being. Taking self-responsibility can be challenging, but it is an essential step towards personal growth. Instead of looking at others and looking for explanations for problems in relationships, you need to look inside yourself. What is it about you that attracts these situations? What emotional patterns or limiting beliefs are being repeated? Transformation begins when you decide to no longer depend on external factors, but to take control of your emotional journey. The transformation process doesn't happen overnight, but it is incredibly rewarding. Reprogramming the mind is an ongoing path that involves daily practices, such as self-analysis, meditation, and even therapies that help heal emotional wounds. With patience and dedication, you begin to change the way you relate to the world, leaving old patterns behind and embracing a more authentic and balanced version of yourself. The way we relate to others is strongly influenced by the subconscious energies we carry. In other words, what is stored in our unconscious mind tends to be projected into our relationships. If you carry deep beliefs that you don't deserve love or that people are likely to disappoint you, you will end up attracting situations that reinforce these beliefs. The subconscious mind is like a magnet, attracting what is vibrating internally into your reality. This projection happens all the time, and often, we don't even realize it. Imagine you have an emotional wound related to trust. Even if a new partner has not done anything to break that trust, the tendency is for you to project your fears and insecurities onto them, reacting excessively or distantly. This happens because, without meaning to, you are projecting your emotional energy onto others, creating distortions in relationship dynamics. The good news is that by becoming aware of how this projection works, you can work to change the energy that is being sent out into the world. Practices such as conscious breathing and self-analysis help to release stored energies and replace negative patterns. When you begin to realize the power of your mind and your emotional energy, it is possible to reprogram relationships, attracting healthier and more balanced connections. Changing deeply rooted relational patterns begins with a simple but powerful practice: reflecting. By stopping for a moment to observe the repetitive dynamics in your life, you begin to notice what is happening on a subconscious level. Ask yourself, what behaviors and situations are constantly repeated in my relationships? Identifying these repetitions is the first step to freeing yourself from the cycle and understanding the origin of these beliefs or traumas. After reflecting, comes the mental reprogramming phase. This means actively working to release the emotional energies that keep these patterns alive. One of the most effective practices for this is conscious breathing. Breathe deeply, visualize the emotional energy you want to release, and allow it to dissipate. Furthermore, investing in therapies or coaching can help understand the origin of limiting beliefs, making the healing process even more effective. Finally, Redefining the dynamics of your relationships involves practicing self-validation and establishing new healthy limits. Instead of seeking external approval or validation, learn to validate yourself internally. This does not mean moving away from others, but rather recognizing that your value comes from within, and not from the expectations or behaviors of others. By doing this, you begin to transform relationships, creating new forms of interaction that are more balanced and aligned with what you really deserve. Now that you understand how your relationships can be a mirror of your mind, it's time to reflect. What are they really saying about you? If you are stuck in negative patterns, what can these repetitions reveal about your beliefs and emotional wounds? Self-knowledge is the key to change, and what you've learned so far can be the basis for reprogramming your mind and creating healthier, more authentic relationships. Remember, true transformation begins when you take self-responsibility for your choices and behaviors. It's not about changing others, it's about understanding and changing the energy you are projecting. By establishing new limits and investing in your self-validation, you begin to break the patterns that no longer serve you and attract what you truly deserve. Now, how about starting this transformation process? What patterns are you ready to identify and change in your life? Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and follow more content that can help you live the life and relationships you've always wanted.